Hello there, and welcome back to this special edition of Learning Maltese with myself. The elections in Malta have just taken place. Just a couple of days have passed since we received the results, and I just thought I'd do an episode of Learning Maltese, and not just Maltese, but learning Maltese culture as well, related to politics in Malta, il politica Malta. All right, so. For those that don't know, the two largest parties in Malta are Il Partit Laburista and Il Partit Nazionalista. Malta has two political parties, just like in the US, where you have the Republicans and Democrats. In Malta, we have PL and PN. The color of PL is Ahmar, whereas the color of PN is blue or Ikhal. However, despite the country having just two political parties, we also have a myriad of other much smaller political parties, and I'll be listing the ones that contested in the 2026 election. One of them is ADPD, the Green Party, also known as L'Alternativa. Their color is Akhdar, green, and they're probably one of the longest running third parties in Malta. ADPD was not always their name. This is actually a merger of two smaller parties, which were the Alternativa Democratica, which was the original alternative party, and then the Partit Democratica, which is the Democratic Party. So these two small third parties joined together, and they created what is known as today as the ADPD. Another party which was new for this election was Partit Momentum. Their color is turquoise. We have the far right party known as Imperium Europa. Iswet, black is their color. Akhwa Maltin, which sits on the right in the political spectrum, their color is Abiat. And then we also had Volt Malta, whose color is purple, and they sit on the left of the political spectrum. And then we also have some independent candidates, the most famous being Zaren Talaikla. Any Maltese person already has a smirk on their face once they see this name. He's a perennial joke candidate, doesn't truly expect to win the election, of course, but he makes some fun proposals, some wild proposals, and people just celebrate the fact that he's even putting himself out there to begin with. As far as the PL and the PN are concerned, PL is a center left party and PN is a center right party. All right. This is the political map of Malta. We divide the country, as far as our elections are concerned, in 13 districts. And apart from Gozo, more or less every district contains the same number of voters. They try to do that. Generally speaking, at least in this election, the north of Malta is blue, whereas the south of Malta is red. You can see as well from the candidates that were elected. Gozo is very hotly contested. It is a deep purple. But as for the rest, it is more or less along those lines. So this over here would be more nationalist territory, and these ones over here have traditionally been more Labour territory. 13 districts, but we don't think of dividing Malta in our everyday lives into these 13 districts. It is, again, purely just for the elections. This is the way that we vote, and this is a really interesting system because, as far as I can tell, from all the major countries at least, Ireland, as well as certain parts of Australia, introduced this single transferable voting system, il vote singlu transferibili, where Malta uses a voting system where you have to rank the candidates from 1 to as many candidates as you want, instead of just picking one. So over here we have an example of a ballot paper, of a ballot sheet. You'd have all of the parties listed in alphabetical order, and each candidate as well is listed in terms of alphabetical order as well. And you have to rank them. The party that you want to be in power one of its candidates should receive your first vote. But the inheritance of votes can also shift between parties as well. So, for example, if you give your first vote, to this Kalea Mario over here, and Kalea Mario already has enough votes to reach the quota to enter parliament, your vote will not be wasted. It will go to your number 2 preference, and then to your number 3 preference and number 4 preference, until it stays at a candidate that does not reach enough votes to match the quota. So reading over here, to win a seat, a candidate must reach a specific target number of votes called the quota. Your vote is never wasted. It stays with your top choice unless they already have enough votes to win or have no chance of winning. So again, if Mario Calleja reaches enough votes for that quota, by the way, that quota is determined depending on the turnout, so it's not a number which is fixed. But let's say it's 5,000, okay? If he reaches 5,000 votes, then your vote will transfer to your number 2 preference. If your number 2 preference was this Camilleri Patrick, and Camilleri Patrick does not receive enough votes to get into parliament, then your vote ends there. But if he does and he reaches the quota, then it will go to your number 3, and to your number 4, and to your number 5. And if you want, you can put your 1 over here and you can put your 2 down here. Or the other way around, of course, as you wish. So your vote has a lot of power, a lot of life. It's very representative in this sense. It's a very democratic exercise, much better than other, if I can say, voting systems, which typically employ a first past the post kind of election. When counting starts, any candidate who reaches the quota gets a seat right away. If your top choice, so if your number 1 vote, gets extra votes that they do not need, those extra votes transfer to your second choice. And if your top choice, however, comes in last and is eliminated, then your vote also moves to the next choice. And this counting cycle repeats until all the seats are filled. So that is how we do our democratic voting in Malta. Now, I mentioned a whole host of other parties, but at the end of the day, Malta's dominated by a 2-party system, il Partit Nazjonalista and il Partit Laburista. But how did they develop? Where did they come from, these 2 parties? What's the history of them? We call it the language question. Back when Malta was under the British, the question emerged on which language, Italian or English, should be the language of the elite, should be the language of law, of education as well. Should it remain Italian, which is how it was traditionally, or should it switch to English? We are, after all, a British colony, and the influence of the US and America as well, and the British English language was always increasing. And so 2 interest groups emerged. Back then, they were not known as il Partit Nazjonalista and il Partit Laburista. They had different names, but they evolved into the 2 parties that you see today. The Nationalist Party, and what is today the Nationalist Party, wanted to protect Italian. That's why they are the Conservative Party. Whereas the Partit Laburista, being the more liberal of the 2 parties, wanted to introduce English as a reform to the current system. In the end, it was the Partit Laburista which won this debate, and in fact today in Malta, the number of Maltese people that know Italian is dropping in comparison with the number of people that know English, which is practically everybody today. So that's a small interesting note on where the 2 parties came from. Interested in learning Maltese? Don't want to commit to a live tutor, even though I do live tutoring myself? Why don't you check out my course on Udemy? Learn Maltese Complete Beginner's Course. It's at a ridiculously low price. It contains 3 hours of content, and it takes you through the foundations of Maltese. This is the course list over here. And by the end of it, you will be able to talk some basic Maltese. That's guaranteed. What can I say? Hope you'll check it out. Link is in the description. Now let's get more to the lesson part of today's class. And we have a list of vocabulary, some very basic vocabulary. We have partit in Maltese, political party. Elezioni, election. Vote, vote. As a verb, ivvota, to vote. Kandidat, a candidate. Deputat, or if you want, membru parlamentari, that's a member of parliament. Gvern, government. Oppozizzjoni, opposition. And liġi, law. If we focus on some people, then the leader of the party is mexxej tal-partit. Prim Ministru is obviously Prime Minister. Kap tal-oppożizzjoni is the head of the opposition party. Il-President ta' or il-President ta' Malta would be the president of wherever, in our case of Malta. And the Secretary General would be a Segretarju Ġenerali. In news articles, it's common to see, especially on the party news channels, for the Labour Party, which is currently in power, and the Prime Minister is a Labour Prime Minister, they would write, Il-Prim Ministru u il-mexxej tal-Partit Laburista, Robert Abela. In the case of the Nationalists, they would say, Il-Kap tal-Oppożizzjoni u il-mexxej tal-Partit Nazzjonalista, Alex Borch, who we have right now. So they like to combine mexxej tal-Partit and the title of the person in question. This gentleman over here is actually Malta's first Prime Minister post-independence from the British, George Borch Olivier. Some very common phrases. Il-Partit Laburista qiegħed fil-gvern. The Labour Party is in government. Il-Partit Nazzjonalista qiegħed fil-oppożizzjoni. The Nationalist Party is in the opposition. Jiena votajt fl-elezzjoni. I voted in the election. Id-deputati jaħdmu fil-Parlament. Members of Parliament work in Parliament. Min hu l-Prim Ministru? Who is the Prime Minister? Meta se jaħabbar id-data tal-elezzjoni? When will he announce the next election date? Iħabbar over here is a verb which has the same root as the word for news, aħbarijiet. So, ħabbar is to announce, news, right? Il-Parlament approva l-abbozz ta' liġi. Parliament approved the draft bill. Abbozz is a draft and liġi is the bill or the law. Waqt konferenza tal-aħbarijiet, during a news conference. And then you can say whatever you want. And finally, I thought, well, we have actually two more things prepared. The first one is a very, very short article. We've spoken a lot about Partit Laburista and Partit Nazzjonalista. Let's talk a little bit about momentum. It's a very, very short article I found on TVM News. We can just read it and try and understand what's going on. So, let me make this bigger. Momentum jitlob iktar protezzjoni ambientali. Can you guess what that means? Jitlob is to request. Iktar means more. Momentum requests more environmental protection. Il-Partit Momentum qal li l-inċidenti ambjentali li seħħew fl-aħħar xhur fosthom nirien f'siti tal-iskart u l-isplużjoni fil-kamra tan-nar fin-Naxxar juru l-ħtieġa ta' aktar protezzjoni ambjentali u infurzar aktar b'saħħtu. Fi stqarrija, il-membru tal-Eżekuttiv Matthew Agius ġie kkwotat jgħid li l-kunsiderazzjonijiet ambjentali għandhom ikunu fiċ-ċentru tad-deċiżjonijiet dwar l-iżvilupp u sejjaħ għal aktar trasparenza dwar studji tal-impatt ambjentali. So, I selected this article because it's very short, but also because it uses a lot of loanwords. I'm hoping that you'll be able to understand, even if your Maltese is of a very limited level, that you'll be able to understand the gist of the article. Pause if you wish to think about it. If not, I'm going to translate slowly. Il-Partit Momentum, the Momentum Party, said, li l-inċidenti ambjentali, that the environmental incidents, li seħħew fl-aħħar xhur, that have taken place in the last months, fosthom nirien f'siti tal-iskart, amongst them fires in waste sites, skart is waste or recycling sites, u l-esplużjoni fil-kamra tan-nar fin-naxxar, and the explosion in literally the room of the fire, but for us that is the fireworks factory, in naxxar, juru l-ħtieġa ta' aktar protezzjoni ambjentali. Show the need of, or in English would say for, more environmental protection. U infurzar aktar b'saħħtu. And more infurzar is enforcement, b'saħħtu is with strength, so stronger and more and stronger enforcement. Fist arrija in a statement, il-membru tal-eżekuttiv Matthew Ajus, the member of the executive Matthew Ajus, who I believe would be this guy, I'm too sure though, ġi kwatat, was quoted as saying li l-konsiderazzjonijiet ambientali, that environmental considerations, sorry about that environmental considerations għandhom ikunu should be fiċ-ċentru tad-deċiżjonijiet dwar l-iżvilupp, should be at the center of decisions surrounding development. U sejjaħ għal aktar trasparenza and call for more transparency dwar studji tal-impatt ambjentali, about studies on environmental impact. Very good. Now, some fun. Let's have some fun. I decided to go on Facebook and find one representative from 3 parties in Malta, from the Labour Party, from the Nationalist Party, and from the ADPD, l'Alternativa. And I thought I'd just highlight what they're saying in their post from the screenshot, and also show you what typical comments on these posts look like. So, over here we have Ian Borch, who is currently now the Minister for Health for the Labour Party, and he's with Deo De Battista, who is a Parliamentary Secretary. And over here they're saying, Filimkien sanatu laqwa tagħna. Together we're going to give our best. They're talking about their work, their new assigned work in the health ministry. And over here we have 2 comments. We have Mandiġ dubju, awguri dejjem. Unfortunately, comments are 99% always written in bad Maltese, from small mistakes to big mistakes. So for each one, I've decided to write the proper Maltese version of this. So this one is saying, Mandiġ dubju, awguri dejjem, I have no doubt. Good luck as always. Nawguralkom għal-ħidma l-ġdida u grazzi. I wish you for good work, to do a good job, and thank you. Alex Borch is saying, nirringrazzja lill-forzi tal-ordni li dalgħodu qed jgħinu fl-inħawi tas-Salini wara l-isplużjoni li ħasdet pajjiż. Ħsibijieti jmorru wkoll lejn dawk kollha affettwati bil-qawwa tal-isplużjoni. I thank the forces, they're talking about the police and the fire force, that this morning helped or are helping the surroundings or the villages, the residents of Salini after the explosion that shook a country. My thoughts are also with those that have all been affected with the strength of the explosion. Luckily, this explosion that he's referencing, nobody died. There were unfortunately many animals which passed away, people that had property damage, but thank goodness nobody actually died in this explosion. Over here we have 2 comments. Bonġu Azistana inħobbuk wis. Good morning, our dearest. We love you very much. We love you too much, actually. Bonġu Kap. Good morning, head of the Nationalist Party, or head of the opposition. Il-ġurnata tajba. Good day to you, or just have a good day. And over here we have Sandra Gauci, who is the head of the ADPD party. And she did a video post, but her short statement here was messaġġ qasir ta' ringrazzjament, a short message of thanks. This was done post-election. And we have 2 comments here. Brava u ta kuraġġ. Proset. Brave and courageous. Well done. Inħobbuk għax mara sinċira. We love you because you are a sincere woman. So I thought I'd just give all of you a little peek into the world of Maltese politics. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave any comments or questions that you may have. Otherwise, thank you very much. As we say in Maltese, grazzi u saħħa.